It's incredibly sharp. It's a great showcase of what you can achieve with the RF mount and its different lenses. And features like image stabilization just make it that much better. But boy oh boy, am I bored when I'm shooting pictures with this lens. What is up, photo fam? Luis Rocha here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Canon RF 15-35 F2.8 IS lens. Is that all the letters? I think I got them all. Now this lens is Canon's first ultra wide angle zoom that's native to the new RF mount of lenses. This range of lenses has been amazing. The technology that Canon is developing and putting into these lenses is incredible. It's so much fun to use, and this lens is no different. And I have to tell you guys that this lens is great. This lens is technologically advanced, and this lens is boring as f. Now, back in my earlier days as a professional photographer, I made my money in nightlife, festivals, and concerts. So the Canon 16-35 EF lens was my dream lens for a long time. I really lusted over that lens. And when I was finally able to afford that lens, it was a game changer. I could never go back to not owning that lens. So I've always held ultra wide zooms in a really high regard. Even when I switched over to Fuji for a while from Canon, I always made sure to have an ultra wide zoom in my arsenal. I never really questioned it, it's just something that I always made sure that I had. So when Canon announced this ultra wide RF, I immediately thought to myself, okay, awesome, we're definitely gonna get that, no question at all. So I ordered the lens and I was very impressed about everything about it, but then I didn't really use it that often. And at a $2,300 price point, I kind of had to assess whether or not it was something that I should keep. And that personal need to assess how much enjoyment I'm getting out of this lens is what birthed this review. So let's get into this lens and let's start talking about what makes it great. First of all, like I mentioned at the start of this video, if you shoot nightlife, if you shoot real estate photography, and you are a Canon RF mount shooter, get this lens. You need it. It's amazing. It is going to blow your mind, and you're gonna make a lot of money with this lens. This is a Canon L series lens, so of course it goes without saying that this lens is wonderfully sharp and it renders color with that signature Canon character that all of us Canon shooters out there know and love. And there are a lot of things that this lens is really good at. So let's go ahead and dive into some of my example images right here. If you follow me on Instagram, which you really should, at the Luis Rocha, you'll know that I really enjoy holding things from a first-person perspective. And this lens obviously crushes those kinds of images because I'm able to get more in the frame from a closer distance, so it never feels too cramped when I do those first-person point of view photos. As you guys can see, it's great for interior shots because you can get so much in the frame. In this picture right here, I was literally sat at my desk and shot this image at the widest focal length of 15mm, and I got so much of my desk in the frame. It was just a cakewalk with this lens. I will say though that it's possible to get too much in the frame when you're using the 15-35. When this lens first arrived at my doorstep, I was super excited to put it through its paces, and I was shooting at 15mm like crazy. But you can see when I uncrop this image from a square to the full photo that I shot, it gets really difficult to curate what's in your frame if you're not trying to crop it. And of course, while traveling and shooting in small spaces, you often find yourself in situations where you do need that wide focal length to get more in the frame. But in everyday use, I did find the 15mm focal length a bit too wide. I did also shoot portraits with this lens. And if you're not familiar with shooting people using a 15-35 or another ultra wide angle zoom, you should know that it's very easy to distort people. It's very easy to distort people's faces and to start getting some almost cartoony sort of vibes from the people that you're shooting if you're not careful. You'll absolutely want to make sure that you keep them in the middle of the frame. And when you do, the results are really cool, as you can see in this photo. Trying to apply the rule of thirds when you're shooting a human subject using this lens can be a bit of a fool's errand, because you're gonna find a lot of that distortion in the corner of the frames when you're shooting at the widest focal length. Unless you're standing further away from your subject, then you're gonna start getting some of those weird, distorted, cartoony vibes that in my opinion don't make for the best photos of people. For example, here's an image where I'm really happy with the lighting, model looks great, but because I shot it at 15mm and positioned her in the corner of the frame, visually something looks a bit off. We are getting that distortion that comes with the territory of an ultra-wide angle lens as you start to move into the corners of the frame. Like I said, this lens is tack sharp, it renders beautifully, but as I was reviewing my files for this review, I noticed that my favorite images with this lens weren't shot at focal lengths that took advantage of the ultra-wide aspect of this lens. I'm starting to move away from these ultra-wide images, and from a photographic standpoint, this lens just wasn't doing it for me, and it's really difficult to justify the price. But, and it's a big but, this is where things start to get a little bit tricky and why I call this lens a necessary evil. If you shoot any video, this lens ticks several boxes. It's an ultra-wide L lens, it shoots at a constant f2.8, and it has image stabilization. Image freaking stabilization. I mean, it's just an amazing lens for professional handheld video, vlogging, etc. The video footage out of this lens is just superb, and I'm really impressed with the image stabilization. In this clip right here, I'm trying to get a shot of me throwing a marshmallow into my wife's mouth. I'm holding the camera with one hand, moving around quite a bit, and as you can see, it's super stable. I have several video projects that I'm cooking up right now, and I know that this lens is going to be something that I need in order to execute these projects in the way that I've envisioned them. You know, when it comes to this lens, I think you really have to ask yourself if this lens is going to pay for itself. When you're looking at a lens that's a bit more standard and much more affordable, like let's say a Sigma 35mm art lens, you know you're getting a very versatile lens that is going to be able to be used throughout a lot of different paid shoots. And even if you don't make money off your photography yet, it's not that expensive to the point where you feel guilty for just owning it. That is not the case with this lens, however, because at a $2,300 price point, you really have to ask yourself if it's worth the expense. I think putting that same amount of money towards an RF 50mm 1.2 would bring a lot more enjoyment for photographers, but if you're a videographer, getting this lens is almost a no-brainer. Ultimately, I do think that the RF 15-35 is an amazing lens. It's incredibly sharp, it's a great showcase of what you can achieve with the RF mount and its different lenses, and features like image stabilization just make it that much better. But boy oh boy am I bored when I'm shooting pictures with this lens. I'd almost call this the Honda Civic of lenses. Now, I used to own a Honda. Hondas are great, but you don't get a Honda because you want to have fun. You get a Honda because it's dependable. And that's what this lens is. It's dependable. You're not gonna have a lot of fun, but if this ticks the right boxes for you, it is going to help you in a lot of your projects, primarily if you're a videographer. So before pulling the trigger on this lens, I highly suggest that you brainstorm. You brainstorm on the sorts of images that you like to shoot. You brainstorm on the needs that you're missing within your collection of lenses, and you brainstorm how much money this lens is actually going to bring in. If buying this lens is a business decision and you can quantify in dollars and cents the need for it, then go for it. You will not be disappointed. This lens is killer. But if you don't think you're going to make money using this lens and you're considering buying it for personal enjoyment and to add another lens to your RF series of lenses, I can't really recommend it. You could put the same money towards a prime lens, you can put that same money towards the amazing 28-70, which I will be reviewing soon, and just get a lens that you're going to have more fun with. Do you need a fun car or do you need a Honda Civic? That is kind of the question that you're asking yourself when it comes to this lens. And that is why I consider the Canon RF 15-35 F2.8 IS lens a boring but necessary evil. What do you guys think about this lens? Do any of you guys own this lens? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you thinking about buying this lens? What's making you consider buying this? I would also love to know that in the comments below. I do read every single comment, so please share your thoughts with me and let's open up the discussion. If you enjoyed this review, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and if you really like this video, go ahead and smash that little bell icon underneath so that you can get an update every time I post. I do post a video once a week. Definitely hit that bell icon if you're interested in my review of the RF 28-70 f2 lens. because that will be coming up shortly, and that lens has changed my freaking life and I can't wait to talk about it. So if you're interested in that, sign up for notifications. Until next time, you guys, I'm Luis Rocha. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.